and even though she couldn't say Wang's name, she made sure everyone would know exactly who she meant. She was going to say, a certain disgraced officer who endangered children, and mention the date of his arrest, so people could connect the dots. Her producer had already approved it and said they'd run it 3 times that day. The private investigator we'd hired drove by Wang's sister's house and took pictures of all the new stuff she'd installed. She had cameras on every corner of the house and motion lights that would turn on if anyone got close. The locks were all new too, and the investigator said they were the expensive kind that couldn't be picked. He also noticed she'd put up a fence around the backyard and gotten a big dog that barked at everyone who walked by. 2 days before the release, I was at the grocery store when Rania called me. Someone had spray-painted huge red letters on Wang's sister's driveway overnight. The words, "Child Endangerer lives here," were so big you could probably see them from a plane. His sister had called the police at 6 in the morning, but they didn't show up until after 9. Rania lived 2 streets over and said the cops just took some pictures and left without even trying to find witnesses. Wang's sister spent the rest of the day trying to scrub the paint off, but it had already stained the concrete. Stefan called that night with his final report before Wang got out. He said Wang hadn't been sleeping and looked terrible with dark circles under his eyes. The other guards said Wang kept asking if there would be protection when he left, but they just shrugged and told him to follow his parole rules. Stefan heard Wang on the phone with his sister begging her to pick him up from a different location, but the prison wouldn't allow it. Wang knew we'd be there, and the fear was making him sick, just like our kids had been sick with fear that night. Stefan said Wang had thrown up twice that morning and couldn't eat anything. Manuel called a meeting the night before release to remind everyone about the civil suit the families had filed against the city. He said we couldn't do anything illegal, or it would give Wang's lawyer ammunition to get the case thrown out. Everyone promised to stay within the law, but we all knew there were plenty of legal ways to make Wang's life miserable. Manuel said the suit was asking for $3 million, and the city was already talking about settling. That night I couldn't sleep at all and kept walking around my empty house. I stood in Cecilia's room and looked at her bed with the princess sheets she'd picked out. I thought about those 10 minutes when she was in that van with zip ties on her wrists. I thought about how Wang sat there eating his sandwich while my baby was being driven further away. I thought about the other 2 girls who'd been missing for weeks because nobody believed their parents either. My phone kept buzzing with messages from other watch members who couldn't sleep either. The alarm went off at 4:30 and I was already dressed because I never went to bed. Blake picked me up in his truck, and we drove to the prison in the dark, while Stefan texted us updates from inside. Wang had been up all night too, and the guard said he kept throwing up in his cell toilet. We parked across from the back exit where they release people and watched 13 more cars pull up with watch members getting out. Manuel had told us to stay on public property and not block any roads, so we stood on the sidewalk holding our phones ready to record. The transport van pulled around at 5:50, and we could see Wang's face pressed against the window looking right at us. He ducked down so fast his head made a thump we could hear from outside. The van sat there for 10 minutes while they processed his paperwork, and we just stood there watching and waiting. His sister's blue Honda pulled up, and she wouldn't look at any of us as she walked to the processing door. Stefan sent a text that Wang was refusing to leave the building,